everyone.
Good morning, LIP community.
By the way, if you haven't
Number
been.
242.
uh,
242. If you're new, welcome. Shirley and Megan here. Just gonna give everybody one more minute to get set up and then we'll get started. Visual practice
Yeah.
242.
And we're getting set up ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, LIP stands for Leadership in Practice, for those of you who are new to it. I think we were a very interesting class.
Sorry, I'm laughing only because we always say that, but
No,
it's true.
but this is
This
really,
time it's really
this
true.
is really interesting. Not that it's ever not interesting, right? But no, this is really interesting. We're just having a conversation at breakfast that we had the privilege over the years spending time with, like, probably the best in human performance that you can imagine. And what one theme with the best is that when it comes to understanding the human mind and how to operate optimally, the absolute best, all will admit, we're not even close to understanding. Meaning it's that new, it's that nascent. And so, of course, out in the public, all the articles, all the stories, everyone acts like here's what it is and here's what you do. And I mean, we have spent time directly closed doors with the best. It's so far from being, near complete. It's so far from even reaching a 50% mark. So just a lot of really interesting stuff, even just in 1 week, the level of depth we went into discussion. So we'll share different pieces, but I think this is really, really good stuff. And it's gonna evolve, but I feel it's like really, really cool stuff of kind of understanding these micro things that we do on a daily basis that add up over
That
years.
accumulate, yeah.
And
are
typically
automatic.
5 to 10 years, and then the profound negative impact it can have. And how once you see it, you can start to rewire it. And you can start to be more intentional in recognizing the accumulated harm that can come, and then how to actually rewire it in the right way.
Yes.
Right?
And so, yeah, if you are new, we're gonna build upon some other classes we've been teaching, but I think even if you haven't been, I think it's gonna be fascinating. We're gonna be focused, we're labeling, but only in a way, just kind of organize the training. People who are type 1, prediction errors, right? People who make what we're gonna call type 1, more fear-based prediction errors. And this is sort of the language we're using. In type 2, they make prediction errors typically around frustration. So fear and frustration are the two emotions we're trying to challenge, where we believe those two emotions is what messes up our thinking and our decision-making. So fear versus frustration. We all feel both of them. It's just looking for where is the emphasis of the training? Where do you make the most decision-making errors or prediction? We call prediction errors. So we're going to focus mostly today on this type 1,
Yes,
which I am one of them.
and we've
so-
always said, please use chat aggressively. It
Yeah.
just feeds into our
Yeah,
desire to sort of like, I think the problem with Zoom is it's such a classroom type, like you can't speak and you're all muted, of course. So use chat, please put your thinking, comments, what's resonating, what is not. If you rename yourself with your name, comma, company, comma, location, it's kind of neat. You can see kind of people from around the world in different countries, companies, all kind of dialoguing together. And some of the best thinking comes from that true sort of diversity of thought.
Yeah, and by the way, we use the chat pretty aggressively, so go ahead and put comments or questions or reactions or thoughts in there too. And yeah, Jenny, welcome. I think, Jason, thank you for, Deutsche Bank, fantastic. Yeah, welcome. I think you're in for a treat. So, all right, is it slow to get going?
Okay, so I'm just gonna provide a little.
You're gonna love this,
context.
you guys. Hopefully, hopefully it's funny. We're gonna add a little humor in today. I had a few other things, but can I do this one?
Yeah, please.
Oh yeah, so I love this. I'm gonna explain
Sorry,
where this is coming from. Gratitude with a but. If you saw the Nemo movie, what's the name of the movie? Finding Nemo, forever ago, if you have little kids, there is a scene that my husband reminded me. Most people probably don't remember it, but we talk about it a lot. You know, Laura, touch the butt. I don't know if you know when Nemo, not supposed to go out there in the wild, right? And his friends are like, he's gonna touch the butt. They call the boat a butt, but anyways, when the kids were
It's the
little.
back of the boat. No, is that what it is? Or
Is
just
that-
I thought it was just the back.
boat.
Just the boat?
And they're calling it the butt. And so he swims out there, he touched the butt. So anyways, that was the thing in my family for a long time with my little kids. But anyways, if you didn't see it, it's okay. Gratitude with a but. This is really interesting. It's one of the pieces we're gonna talk about in the, kind of in the mindset for type 1 prediction error people, which we, again, like I said, more fear-based, is gratitude. This notion of gratitude, I know we all know what gratitude is. People talk about having a gratitude journal or a gratitude list, checklist, or just a gratitude list. But this idea of gratitude with a but, typically, if you say something that has a little bit of a caveat or it's conditional, that's not gratitude. You're either gracious or you feel grateful for the whole thing, the full thing, or you're not grateful.
Right.
So a lot of my gratitudes will come with a but, is what I've been noticing about myself. I think people who are more like me on this type 1 side will have, I'm glad we did that, but I wish we did it earlier. Or I'm glad we did that or got that done, but it came with a lot of pain. Or I'm glad it just has a lot of like conditions.
Yes.
It has a lot of conditions. So
And-
that's just
and-
one piece we're going to talk about.
But also to recognize even, when you say, I love someone, but, right? And there are all these changes you want, and true love is
Yes.
accepting the full
Sure.
package. That was
Yeah.
an amazing class or an amazing experience, but
I
like
got
that's,
to you a lot.
and I think about.
I'm like, that's an amazing class, but it went too long. Sorry.
So
Sorry.
when you
And
find
once
yourself.
you notice it and you're aware of it, it's
Like-
everywhere.
Yes.
I'm noticing I do it everywhere. It is in my automatic.
And to recognize, and maybe that visual of finding Nemo, right? To not touch the butt. Don't touch the butt. And so as you go through and then you're about to say but, it's like, don't touch the butt,
Don't touch the
right?
butt.
And that can also be playful with other people, like,
Yes.
don't touch the
Don't
butt,
touch
right?
it.
So
Okay.
gratitude with a butt, but we were tossing between what to call this class, and ultimately it's putting together the building blocks for self-belief. And there is a lot out there, a lot of literature, a lot of advice we get that you have to believe. The act and like how something turns out when you believe, and this is the
Yes.
part where it's not like a 80% difference or a 50% swing, but sometimes it's just a 1 to 2% difference. Except think of accumulating that now over a month, over a year, over 5 years, 10 years. The accumulated difference of 1 to 2%.
Yeah.
Because you believe versus you're like, I believe, but I don't think, this are all the reasons why it wouldn't work. And the difference of what you try and the effort you put in, the accumulation of that number has a material impact. And so when we started breaking this down, we realized first how complicated things are. And one of the nuances here is we're going to dive really deep into this type 1 fear-based error. And recognize as human beings, we have both. The two most lethal emotions that hijack our ability to make good decisions, great decisions under stress, under pressure, under uncertainty is fear or frustration. And we will experience both of them. But there is one that predominantly that we need to work on first. And this is different by individual. And so we mentioned before in the previous class, make sure you pick one and you stick to one. And the reason is the protocols are almost the exact opposite. So if you ping pong back and forth, what you will end up getting in sum total is nothing. You'll be in the exact same place. So even if you pick wrong, it's better to pick wrong and stick to it. At minimum 2 weeks if you aggressively practice, because then you'll know, shoot, I really picked wrong. I got to go to the other side. And so this is kind of one of the important nuances in leadership and practice. The ping-ponging back and forth, you start to realize results in the same as nothing. I'd rather you do nothing than ping-pong back and forth. Okay, so this is from last class. I'm just pulling up the slide just to kind of show you. We're gonna, actually I put a quote here from Terry Harvey I loved, that planning is not how you train the intuition. We'll talk a lot more about intuition, and I like this quote of kind of what Terry said, because we are trying to help train the new human skill, which is human intuition, not human logic. Human logic is being done better by computers, and now AI is taking that over so fast. Analytical work, logical work, if that is your jam and what you do majority of the time for a job that you're paid for, you need to start to realize that is rapidly being replaced. But the skill, the human skill, is what Daniel Kahneman calls system one, our intuition, so training that. But intuition comes with errors. And the two biggest types of errors, type 1, type 2, is fear and frustration based. So we're diving into the left side.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to kind of, for those of you who are on the frustration side, you might be like, oh, wow, I really like this and resonate. I will warn you up front, you will probably end up doing the exact worst thing imaginable for yourself. So with that caveat, but you can still learn because at some point you might need it too.
And maybe as a litmus, if you're
Yes.
new to this too, if you use the phrase like, I fear when I say this, something will happen, or I fear this happening, or I worry about this, or versus I'm so frustrated, and usually at others about other things that feel out of your control, you kind of know which side you're on, right?
And the other litmus test is to realize, for most of us, 85% of our waking hours are at work. Or like with work-oriented stuff. So fix the majority first. A lot of times we'll say, well, I am that way with my mother-in-law, or I'm that way with my spouse or my children. And yet 85% of our waking hours are interfacing with work. So fix the majority first, then get to the secondary. And so that's also the litmus test.
Okay.
What you say when it's tied to work, right? I fear or I'm so frustrated. Okay. Oh, and so like the very bottom left of the screen, a little small animation if you didn't see it.
Good.
The wrong formula is when fear is greater than faith. You generate nervous energy. You generate, obviously, this is the whole fear taking over the brain. And there's a lot of things that go wrong. And so how do we train to dial down fear? And dial up faith. And it's an equation of balance. And when it's imbalanced in this way, where fear is greater than faith, we tend to do the wrong things. And that can be a startled, like thing that is usually a regretted decision. But the most common thing is doing nothing, right? Trying to hide, trying to kind of, be silent or low calorie optics oriented things. So when you reverse it and you can dial down fear and dial up faith, you get the equation above, which allows you to take risk. And we said the last class, into the unknown. Persistent uncertainty is the biggest form of stress for all human beings now. And by definition, if it's uncertain, that means you're taking risk. Making a decision, saying something, doing anything into the unknown is risk taking. And you'll see you will not be able to take risk if your belief, your faith isn't greater than your fear. So a couple of things, this is from last class. I don't know if Danielle Smith is there, but I like this. She shared here this concept in therapy called window of tolerance. And every time you enter a fight or flight mode, and especially not lower, but if you go into higher and higher levels of stress, higher and higher levels of even fear, you will see that you will actually grow your window of tolerance. Your ability to face scarier actually grows. So every unexpected situation can trigger fear or frustration. In this case, we're talking about fear. Think of haunted houses.
Yeah.
The scarier the haunted house you go to, and recency matters. I went to one really scary 10 years ago. You might kind of lose that window of tolerance, but the ability to actually lean into like difficulty, lean into fear so that you grow your tolerance, and that's the act of reducing fear. There's two other things I'm going to set just context for turning over to Meghan. This is just a TechCrunch article. It's a tech publication. A guy by the name of Brad Feld was talking about, he just published a book called Give First. And I like this, so I just sharing it. And it's like his 9th book or something, but I love this concept. Not only the give before you get, but he was saying what's missing often in a community, and startup community, but any community, is you need people willing to put in energy without defining upfront what they'll get back. I thought this is very powerful. People willing to put in energy. And so think about into other relationships with other people without defining upfront what they'll get back. When it works, they'll get something, but they don't know when, they don't know from whom, over what time period, or in what form. And he was talking about that is the most important aspect of mentoring, of giving, of helping. And that to me is so apropos to the definition of this unknown. the environment we're in, the 50% idea, the 50% unknown, no matter what we do, like you have to realize we don't know. So in that situation when you don't know, will you still give it your all? Put in the energy. So that's one. And then the second part, I liked it. And this is very relevant to the discussion today on type 1 and the fear-based. When you give advice to someone, whether you are a mentor or not, right? And a lot of people officially call themselves mentors and others just literally, we're all giving advice to everybody. And instead of saying, here's what you should do, which tends to have a very finite, sense of it, the best advice givers are able to tap into their experience. We call whatever the situation was brought in their memory. And typically you're giving advice to people who are struggling with something,
Right.
which means you're tapping into struggle you've had and explaining what happened, not only what you did, but what happened. A lot of times the best advice starts with empathy, with sort of this, you're struggling, I'll tell you like kind of what it was like for me. And that connection, once you feel heard, which is when you feel empathy, is now when the discussion opens up to hearing another person's wisdom, perspective of what happened, because they're still here standing. And they're not traumatized, they're not like, they're able to talk about it in a difficult but calm enough way.
Yeah.
And so that ability to tap into your past difficulty, your past experience is the very definition of empathy. And of course, if you can't, and you have all these no-go zones, we were talking at dinner last night, it's almost like when you go to those murder scenes and you have all these police tape everywhere, they're like yellow, like fluorescent.
Like do not enter.
Yeah, do not enter. And so when you have all these do not enter zones.
Right, in your brain,
In your brain, your inability to truly tap into empathy when you see difficulty.
Yeah, I like how last night you called it, I wrote it down because I was thinking that we're gonna walk through this, but S1, your system 1 is your intuition, is your fast thinking. It is a feeling database. You called it like it's a feeling database. So if you don't process feelings, which can sound very soft, right? But there's a lot of accumulated feelings that build up. That's what trauma is, right? It's built up and unprocessed and AI has no feelings, exactly. But your feeling database, if you can't tap into it because it has all those police tapes around it, you can't actually access your intuition, right? Your intuition's gonna be broken, right?
Think of your intuition.
It's like your radar is gonna be off,
but
right? You can't go into it, like you're gonna have blockages.
And when you say radar, I think of it as intuition is your sum total of your life wisdom, right? Your lived experience and how you have translated it as a map of how to navigate, future life, not only yours, but other people's. If you have no-go zones, you will struggle to tap into your own wisdom.
Yeah.
And so this becomes critically important. And then we have a lot of conversations throughout the week. I just put notes from my kind of like there's a whole class we can teach on why writing instead of typing on phones or computers, but actually handwriting notes critically important in learning, especially the kind of navigating creativity. There's a whole class we can teach on this.
8 different
But
things.
so we're talking to somebody else, and this is a common notion here, but if you didn't know this, but they were talking to us and kind of reminded us, right, that only 4% of communication is what we say. In other words, and how many times you say, but I said that. No, 96% of communication is nonverbal. Not only body language, but the aura, the tone, the speed. Like when we hear other human beings, we can perceive what they're saying, the intention behind it, versus just the words. Now, some of us get very good at actually deceiving someone with the right words and maybe even the practice tone. But when you meet those people again, the truth always comes out. Over time, truth comes out, which is why the best way to fix it is you got to get to the root. You got to get to the root of what is driving my aura, my body language, my true intention on anything. And if you don't work on that, right? And I love what this person said, your mind will F everything up, right? Your mind will F everything up in most situations because we will use our logic and whatnot. And you're tossing between what your intuition says against what advice you actually were told or read that you should do. I think there was a Jeff Bezos, even when he had he had a podcast with Lex Freeman, and he was talking about kind of when the data and the anecdote sort of conflict. Trust the anecdote, like as in trust the intuition, even though you have to go and check on it. Sometimes like the data says, and he uses this example where, the data said Amazon's customer service is great. Nobody waits more than X minutes. And he's like, I don't know if that's true. And they kept saying, but the data says it. So then he literally in the meeting made a phone call and he was waiting for like, I don't know, 10 minutes or something. And he's like, that's not true. He followed his intuition and then verified. This is not take your intuition and just go act. But you have to learn to listen to.
Back it up with this too,
Right.
right? Back it up.
But you have to learn to listen to your intuition, because when the two match up, it's great, but oftentimes they don't. And that's when you have to know what to do. But that your mind will F everything up, but this idea that your heart and soul will not, meaning natural integrity, natural authenticity, that you have to be confident in your own authenticity. So being transparent and open about what you're really thinking, what you're really feeling, because that's what you want to sharpen. You don't want to sharpen your 4%, which is what most of us do. That's the words you should use. And how many people ask, so what question should we ask? Right? There's a lot of people that'll say when you mentor someone or when you help someone, what's a good question?
Well, if you think about it, it is actually saying, I fear using my intuition to figure this stuff out. We've been saying this phrase, like you could feel your way through situations. Well, if you don't want to feel the things and you haven't, then you can't really feel your way through, right? You have to figure out, what should I be doing? What would somebody else do, right? Like, what is the rule for this? Is there a framework for this? What have we done in the past, right? You can't actually feel your way through it, right?
Yes. Sure.
Okay. Okay. This is going to get a little bit dense, but I'm going to start with something to start, which I thought is so apropos for people on the type 1 side. If this resonates for you, really pay attention, right? Life isn't so much easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's more like stressy, messy, and lemon zesty. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. I feel it could be more challenging. I'm not saying I'm a negative Nelly, but, but, there's no more buts. There's just gonna be no more buts. I'm not gonna, thank you. Yeah, I'm not gonna touch the butt. See how aware I am? I'm aware of the butts, but I still keep doing it.
More butt all day long.
And then, I touch more butt all day long. Okay,
all day long.
We are in a corporate perks at work leadership training session. Okay, it's more stressy, messy, lemon zesty. Okay. So this is gonna get a little bit, before you go, there's 2 parts on this. There's gonna be, we have figured out a lot since last week's leadership and practice class, like going through my own work and training on this over the last 5, 6, 7 days, whatever. It's been 7 days, full 7 days on this. It's getting really good. It's getting really interesting. There's gonna be 2 parts you're gonna see on the next page before we go. There's gonna be learning how to dial down fear, and there's gonna be learning how to dial up faith. There's 2 training protocols, and we're going to break it down into micro, medium, and large steps. So this is a draft, right? I'm putting myself through it. We're working through other people on this, but just stay with it for a second. We can do questions, but I think I think it's really good because it's sort of like, I've been saying, on the physical training side versus the mental training, we're not going to train physical here. We're training mental. And those of you who been with us for a long time. I love exercise. I love working out. I would not consider myself a biohacker and all of that, but I do. Jesus, can I still use the word but not using that? I can, and should I say and? I hate when people say it's no, but it's and. I actually hate that. But okay. And I hate it. What else can I say? I don't like it. Huh? I'm not a biohacker at all. But I like the idea.
But
you are kind of a biohacker.
I like the idea of coming up with, like I delay caffeine, I do the electrolyte, I'm into kind of I'm into those little nuances when Charlie was talking before about things accumulate over time, these small little things. I totally believe that on the body, and yet I've always wanted it on the mind, like to actually figure out, because without those things, you can't actually make change. They're in your automatic, you can't see them. So once you start to realize the different things in the body, you start doing it.
How we got into this discussion?
Which
with the triglyceride?
Oh, sure.
Oh, so this is,
Yeah.
It must have been.
At least 15 years ago?
So.
At least 15 years? Oh, no, I had Mackie by
So
then.
like 10 years
Maybe
ago.
10
It's
years
around
ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
This is after, we had Olivia, I think, right? Second child, right?
I don't know. We didn't have
Sorry,
it.
sorry.
You look at me. I sometimes have to remember the kids'
We
ages.
grew up
I'm like,
together, so.
our kids
so,
grew up together, so she's 11,
But,
so yes.
but yeah, what I was saying was, we went to this guy we've known for years, Jim Leary's written 19 books and whatnot. So he runs a leadership academy as well, and trains like the number ones of the world.
The Human Performance
Human
Institute.
performance. He's like 80 something now, but so we had never actually. Although we had met him for a decade, he put us in his books, called us the demonstration project of kind of all his life's work. We never actually went to his training, so we actually chose to go with like a whole team of us. And the first thing they do is like put you through all these like blood tests and all kinds of other tests. And then you go and train for like 2.5 days. And the very last day, I think, they like give you the test results. And it's like your typical blood test and all the stuff. And mine had a post-it note saying, come see me. And, like my sort of arrogant side was, wow, they want to know how I'm doing it as a CEO, right?
Because
Like,
keep in mind,
how
at
am I
this point, we
staying-
focused a lot on health, nutrition, exercise, all the
I mean, the
programs
whole
we have in the
company,
company. We were like a running machine of health,
So.
we thought.
So I like go up and it's like, I'm looking at my report, but it's like stuff's missing and I'm not quite understanding why. So triglycerides, it's like the fat in your blood. So they point through how to read your stuff and it says if your triglyceride is over 300, it's like really dangerous. As in like you could end up in ER, you can have a heart attack, I mean, really bad things. And so I'm looking at mine and mine says 550, right? And that's like really high. And so high that it doesn't calculate all these other things you need to know.
Like the other numbers didn't work.
And I had
so high.
no idea. And
Yeah.
I'm like healthy, I work out and everything. And it's like, so like I go up and the top nutritionist there is, I don't even know how you're standing. That like you should be in the hospital, like basically you could just fall
You should
dead,
be
like,
dead, she
and
said.
like any second. And I was like, and you're in this table with all these other CEOs. So I'm on a table with like, I know, like 5 other like older men who are executives. And when I sit down, they're all like, don't worry, we're all on Lipitor. They're like, the drug will bring it right down and you can eat whatever you want to eat and all this stuff. And I
Yeah.
like say to a team, like, I don't want to do that. So like, I want to know how to fix this. I want to know how to fix it. And the nutritionists and all the medical people there are like, it's just way too high. It's not going to happen. It's too dangerous. So I tell them, so I like sit them down in my typical fashion. I'm probing and grilling them. I want to know every nuanced detail of like, what's the thing I have to dial down and what do I have to dial up? And I go through this whole process and chatting with them, scribbling like maybe 10 pages of notes. And so I come back and then I promise them that I will go to the doctor and get on this drug in 30 days if I don't fix it. And they're like, there's no way, right? It's too high, there's no way.
Yeah.
And so the beginning protocol, the micro protocol was within 30 minutes of waking up, getting your metabolism going. And the easiest way to do it was nuts. So I had like a giant bag of nuts at home. And then drinking lemon water. So like, it's kind of like healthier. And so nuts and lemon water was the combo. First thing in the morning, within 30 minutes waking up. And like the first like week doing it, I mean, like, if you don't eat usually, like when you wake up, like
You're like
it's
getting
difficult.
nauseous,
It's
right?
very difficult to eat when you're not hungry, right? And especially like nuts, which can be chalky and it just like, and then you're drinking lemon water. Like I was gagging for a week, even just the process of doing it. And of course you want to go and see how am I doing? Is it working? Is it not? And to just wait. And we had a blood test screening, we call it fitness and nutrition event in 30 days for the whole company. So I said, I'm not going to check until then, and went religious in this micro habit every morning. And it was so difficult to start and just kept doing it. And then it got easier by the second week. And then, and then I got used to it and started to fix other things after. And when I took my blood test in 30 days, like, our whole team, and I shared this whole thing with the company. So everyone knew. And so like everyone was like on pins and needles.
I was getting
watching
my blood work
our-
while you were like over there. I had like, oh my God, dear God, please make sure that this is working, right? But like, but there was like that feeling of,
You don't
this
know.
really might not work,
No,
right?
and-
Because
and
there's all these experts are
Every
telling
expert said
you.
there's no way,
Yeah.
it's too high.
And like, why
like-
wouldn't everybody do it almost? Like, if you could do this, I remember feeling like, wouldn't everybody be doing this and not on a drug if they
And
could?
I remember like when I
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
get a little emotional, think about it, but
Yeah,
like my number dropped to 150.
that was
It
insane.
was like,
Or 150,
and-
150.
no, it was like it was below like
Jesus.
the normal. And literally, it was one of those like, my eyes
Yeah.
I was just, you know, that
Yeah.
relief when the outcome is there.
Yeah,
But you invested in what is the process and kept doing it despite every part of my physical and mental body questioning and, you know, trying not to think about the
Outcome,
exam and the
yeah.
test, and just kept doing this micro habit that then built into a few other things.
yeah.
And to see the dramatic
Hey, how
impact
are
to the
you?
point where no one could believe
Yeah.
that was possible.
Well, then you
Like,
inspired
no,
other
no,
people
and like
too
no one
to
could
do
believe
it.
it. Doctors couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. That's too fast. That shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
No one could believe it. But then like to find out, a lot of our Indian engineers, like their diet is not healthy and they all had triglyceride issues, but they're all much lower than mine. But still 360,
Yeah.
350, I mean, dangerous numbers. And they all started following the same protocol and I mean, I can't tell you how many people,
Yeah.
like in 30 days with a diligent micro habit, had this almost the same thing happen. And to the point where
Yeah.
our nanny had an issue. She had huge triglycerides. She like grew up with the whole,
Kira.
you drink,
Orange
orange
juice.
juice in the morning, right? And
The
like
worst
all
thing
the
to do.
stuff that was
Yeah.
wrong, and the doctor was like, there's no way, it's too high, and hers was like 300 something, and then it dropped also, and the doctor's like, how is that possible without drugs? It's
Chris
like,
wants to know what kind of nuts you used. You started at first, the almonds were too
Oh,
rough, and then
yeah,
you went.
almonds
I'm
like
ready
kind of
for the bathroom
slice your
while you
throat,
talk.
I
Sorry.
feel.
Go to the bathroom.
Cashews taste like chalk. Pistachios. Pistachios were the easiest and best. But literally, I would wake up, like, I mean, think about sleepy kind of walk. I guess Ziploc is bad now because of microplastics, but I put it in Ziploc. And nuts are one of the things that just don't go like bad. It lasts much longer. And so I would literally just put my hand, like fistful of pistachios, shove it down, chew it down, and drink lemon water. And so at home, it looks like almost like soap water because that's the color, but I would always have a jar of lemon water there in the fridge and just would do this religiously. And it was crazy. So in having this discussion with Meghan, that's what came up, because think about the scary aspect of outcome. If it doesn't work, and even just screwing around, you could die. Right? I mean, the top people in the medical field, I'm buying all the time for Meghan to come back, by the way. So the notion of like how hard it is to not think about the outcome, especially when the outcome like could be death, right? And the notion of then going into Lipitor and all the drugs to actually lower that, I saw as the beginning of kind of the end of being healthy. And maybe that isn't fully true, but every aspect was you could die while doing this experiment, but it like to not think about that, to go to the micro habit and just fight your way through and be diligent and religious about it. And yet not think about the outcome, very hard to do. And so kept focusing on this process, kept doing it. And as we're talking about that, it led Meghan to say, wait a sec, physical habits is one thing, but I need mental habits like that. So what would be the equivalent of nuts and lemon water that would make you gag, right? Maybe not physically, but mentally, that you have to keep doing on a daily basis until the act of doing that habit gets easier. And the sum total of that, even as soon as 4 weeks, can lead to change where fear no longer is hijacking difficult decisions. Fear no longer takes over when you see things not work out and the whole thing falls apart. So I'm just doing a little song and dance for the team. All right.
No, this is literally, so I had to go to the bathroom, I figured I'd take my opportunity, but this conversation over the weekend, I said to Charlie, you know, I want my equivalent of the nuts and lemon. I want that so bad. Like I do that for the body. I'll find little things, but I don't do that for my mind, like deliberately, like what are those things, right? Like just to start there, because I feel like if I don't start something first thing in the morning, like the electrolyte or the coffee or whatever, like I need things like that I need
But that's
something
not physical.
small. But no, I'm
Not-
saying, I know, yeah, sorry, I thought I made that really clear. We're not talking physical. We're talking mental.
But
I'm just
saying it
saying,
only because a lot of people
yes,
rely so much on physical as the cue into mental that they don't realize they never do the mental habit. They
Yeah.
actually only do the physical. And the belief is an automatic into the mental, and it's not.
Mm, mm.
It's a whole different sphere.
Yeah.
You're going to?
Sure. So,
All right.
okay. So this is
Here
the
goes.
type 1 prediction error protocol. At a very high level, like I said, not physical, we're talking about mental habits. Think of them, if you want, like mental hacks, but and there's different tiers of it. So on the left side, it's how to dial down fear. On the right side, it's dialing up faith, and you're gonna need both. It's sort of like if you're gonna get healthy, you're gonna dial down sugar, and then you're gonna dial up, say, things that are good for your gut. You're gonna do both. So on the left side, I'm gonna just dive into that. So try to not look at the right, but just if you dive in on the left.
Can I emphasize something? You know, that it says action to change mindset. The biggest challenge and the biggest sort of farce I've seen out there is there's so much on, you gotta work on your mindset and whatnot. And there's a notion, because it's your mind, it's almost like, once you know what's
Oh,
right
I
and what's
see.
wrong, you would just fix it. And
But
it's
you
almost
need
like,
an action.
just believe, or just, fear is not real danger, it's perceived danger, it's made up in your head. And then you're supposed to go, oh, thank you for that insight,
Yes,
now I'm better.
good now. Yeah.
And mindset is so hard to change,
Right.
but it takes action. And so
Mhm.
what is the action that changes mindset? As opposed to, you got it, right?
Mhm.
It's not insight. And so.
Right, yeah, it's not insight, it's actually action. So on the left side, again, like starting, okay, sorry, press enter, sorry, I'm gonna call that A, and then I'm gonna call that side B. Just, I know this is not as pretty, but tried to organize it last night, but, well,
Oh,
I'm not talking about B right now, I'm talking about A. A1, A2, A3. It's gonna start from the bottom and go up. So there's micro, there's medium, and then there's large to dial down fear. And so we're starting at A1. This is the micro, we're gonna call them bravery reps. So the micro bravery rep. So for instance, just like the nuts and lemon water, now that we've all talked about that, this would be the equivalent for the mind, the action for the mindset change, the morning hack, right? The nuts and lemon water. But this is a micro bravery rep. So something that scares you, something that, you don't want to look at, you're going to look at that first thing in the morning. And this desensitizing, sort of what that woman Danielle said last week in lip class, the tolerance window, is to increase tolerance. So, for instance, this could be, I know Kwang, last week you said there's a piece of feedback, you're stewing on it, or maybe from a while back, and and every time you look at it or think about it, it makes you nervous. It's something that gives you that nervous energy when you think about it. Whatever that is, critical feedback, something that when you talk about it, think about it, look at it, it brings that feeling or that emotion of fear and nerves. That's the thing that you want to sort of like force yourself every morning, kind of like the bag of nuts, force yourself every morning. You don't want to do it, but you're going to find a small morning hack right when you wake up to not delay it, to do it first thing. And then, so that's the first piece.
Mhm.
The second piece.
And can I say,
yeah.
like, the bullets you put on the right of it? You're learning to
I just said that,
desensitize.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just said that, and then the tolerance.
And the goal is exposure to that piece. You might even want to print it out, have it like next to your bed. So when you wake up, literally within 30 minutes of waking up, it's boom, right? You're reading it. And as you read it first, I think
Yeah.
some of the experiences you're gonna wanna,
Oh,
you're
sure,
gonna
yeah. So I
wish.
have a pink folder. I have like a folder under my bed. I was like, and so what I do is, and it's still dark kind of in my room, which is a little bit annoying, but I grab it, because I wanted it on my phone, but I actually think it's better to have it like before I look at my phone. So I put like my little light on on my phone, and so that I can read it. And I used to read it, so I'm only doing this for a week, but I would read the whole thing, all the different things I'm looking at. And now I just look at the sections that really kind of, or viscerally guttural, kind of I don't like. And it is getting easier. I also know I'm doing it. And so I'm a little less gaggy when I think about it. I do feel like it's small, but it's making me a little less, upset by it or whatever.
Think of this idea that fear is a hijacking
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
So you're exposing yourself and you're trying to not get hijacked, even though in the beginning you will be hijacked.
Yeah.
Right? So that exposure. Yep.
Okay. The medium, calling it medium bravery rep, is conflict avoidance. There could be other things in here, but I think for most humans and for most people on the fear side, we like to avoid conflict. I think it is a natural condition to avoid conflict, but especially for those of us on this side, like conflict is something we avoid. So on the right-hand side, I wrote 0, 0. So if you're new to the class, that means zero hesitation, zero calculation, as in being fully authentic. And it's not just authentic to yourself, right? I put on others or with others. It's always when somebody else is in the mix where it's difficult, like conflict, not self, like conflict with others. So this idea of making sure that you find time in the week, every week, I'll show you at the end of this, like the schedule kind of put together, but it's looking for an opportunity every week with every opportunity, every interaction to not avoid conflict, to actually say what you're thinking. And again, like this is like within the circles of safety we always talk about. I'm not advocating whatever you're dealing with, board meetings or things that are, more difficult that you need to kind of, this is training, this is practice ground. It's looking for every interaction, every opportunity to not avoid conflict, but just make sure you know the one or two areas where like that would be dangerous for you, like to not, use your head in the sense of find ways to actually train this. Easier to start and then ramp up. The large one, this is the large one, this is like the macro or like the big bravery rep here. And you'll do this as you start to get more brave, ideally every week, but it's to actually go into topics and things that are difficult for you to talk about or even think about. So I wrote trauma with like a step function up, starting with small things and then building up to something much larger. And this goes back to the conversation we were having where Charlie was talking about this sort of like this S1 and empathy. Again, like you can't actually have empathy. You can't go into different areas of difficulty if you haven't processed some of those emotions yourself, this kind of intuition, this feelings database. Like you have to be able to tap into those things. And if you haven't processed them or haven't gone into them, even, for a while, like when it comes up, it'll hijack your brain. This is the fear will hijack your brain. You won't be able to go into it, which means you can't use your intuition, which means you're going to default to logic and analytical thinking. And we're trying to train the S1. We're trying to hone the intuition, right? Because in the unknown, when things are unexpected, you get hit with fear and hijacking. You can't be like, what's the framework? What should I do? What did we used to do? Like you can't think, like you can't, that's not the skill you need to hone in this new century of, AI and unprecedented, uncertainty and constant uncertainty. That's not going to help you. So it's, how do you actually not get hijacked? You have to go into these things. So maybe I'll give the example of last week, and I don't know if Mike and Steve, if you guys are on here, and but Steve had brought up a situation and it related also to his wife. And it was really interesting. It led to this whole conversation where I'm like, God, why do I not want to go in and coach this particular like effort around a mom, right? Lost her job, child with learning challenges. It like brought up all this stuff that I was like, I don't know why I don't want to talk about it, but I don't want to talk about it. My own challenges with kids and challenges with learning and all this stuff. And I was like, my God, like, I didn't realize it's like gripping me that much where if I start talking about it, I'm either going to cry or get upset. I have to like go into it and I really don't want to, and I said to Charlie, I don't even want to talk about it with you walking home the other night. Why? I'm like, cause I don't want to be judged on it. I was like, oh my God, like this is the top. I didn't realize it was holding me. This is the topic I need to go into and just start to process it. And so it is harder, right? But there are things that are much harder in life that I'm tackling. So it's to learn to start to tackle those things. Like ideally it's in the week, right? And this is where you start to feel more brave. You can go into these difficult topics so that you're not like hampering your ability to go into your intuition and help others, help yourself and help
The
others.
thing I would say, look, trauma is such a
It's
big
such a big
word,
word, yeah.
right? It's such a loaded word that I think a lot
Just-
of us like to associate either not having trauma
Yes.
or like,
Yeah.
I have trauma and it's sacred, you can't talk about it.
Yes, yes,
And
yes, yes.
I think of every human being
Has
just
trauma.
builds trauma,
Yes.
right? And
It's
if you don't want to use
accumulated.
trauma, there's some big thing
Yeah,
that is a
Difficult
no-go
topics.
zone. It's a
Yeah.
no-go zone.
yeah,
It's difficult to talk about
Yeah.
it and it's also difficult for you to even think about it.
yeah.
And so the very act of having this no-go zones
Mhm.
in our head of different life experiences that like, I don't want to process it. I don't
Yeah.
know what to do with it, so we park it. And what ends up happening, unfortunately, is intuition is taking in more data points. Remember, we shared before in the science that if you can, system 2, which is the logical brain, taking maybe 40 to 50 bits of information per second. Intuition is taking 11 million bits of information per second. So think about everything else that's the aura, the feeling that's absorbed by your intuition. And as your intuition is moving, it's looking for patterns. And the problem with the no-go zones, it's easier to map incorrectly. I think this is kind of like the no-go zone.
Yeah.
This reminds you of the no-go,
Yes.
and before you know it, that no-go zone isn't actually contained, it
Mhm.
grows. And the larger it grows, we end up losing our ability to use our intuition. As long as it's happy, it's definitely safe. Yeah, sure, you can use it and be yourself.
Mhm.
But the minute something challenging, even remotely perceived challenging shows up, you're now matching it and often matching it incorrectly off of intuition.
Yeah.
So then you either go quiet, right? Or you start to look for your system too. What am I supposed to say?
Yeah.
Before you know it, you can get so good in building those pathways that you're atrophying the very skill that is now the new human skill, which is how to use your head, your brain, your thinking.
Yeah.
But that thinking that's required to navigate uncertainty is our system one, our intuition. It's our intuitive brain.
Well, you can't really be in the present, which is a whole other thought around that, but this topic comes up. Now you're thinking about something that you feel you shouldn't be thinking about. You're trying to stay engaged in the conversation,
Mhm.
and you can go off into a whole other land. I could be
Yes.
thinking about, well, thought I was gonna be a stay-at-home mom. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I wonder what her mom was really wanting to do. She had depression because she didn't work, and then all of a sudden you're like, what the hell are you thinking about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can really go off into like a completely different world and not actually be focused in the now, which is in the present, which is being fully engaged, which is, bringing your full self. Like, you can't do that.
Mhm.
So
No,
you
and I
can't use
mean,
your intuition.
like,
So then you're like,
trying
oh,
to-
what should we be talking, what are we
like-
talking about? What's the formula right now for
We
this?
will often revisit difficult things that we face even in a day.
Yeah,
We have a routine of just walking home for the last hour as opposed to just having the wind down in the office. And
Yeah.
in the process, it's like arguing, it got really difficult. It's like, wait, this
Why
is
is
not
this
even
so-
our life. Why is this getting?
why is it difficult?
And it
Yeah.
led to like
I was
unpacking.
like, I don't wanna
like-
talk about that. And I, it's weird too, because for me, like, running this company for so long, we focus on development. I didn't realize it's these little things that accumulate over time. I mean,
Can
I
I
said-
show this? Because the
consistency.
the orange box is where consistency lies, and then there's intensity. And there's always an important element in just training anything human. You have to recognize you want to build on a foundation of consistency, and then you have to hit intensity. Otherwise, you end up losing the reason to do something. Oftentimes people sign up for a marathon. That's the intensity. That's the A3. But you have to then start with, okay, I'm going to invest in new running shoes, and the habit of like, I get up and I put on my running shoes. Like, you find this
Mhm.
micro habit, and then you build a something medium, and that is where you're spending most of your time. But if you don't have the A3, the intensity,
Yeah,
you will at some point question, why am I doing this?
Mm.
Right? Like, the consistent stuff is boring. It's not
Yes.
very fun or celebratory to look at. So you need the narratives that actually come from the intensity. And this is a pattern we've seen a lot where
what do you
Like,
mean you need the narratives?
the storytelling animals that we are
Yeah.
that affect how we think and how we
Oh.
act,
Avengers.
the stories come from the large stuff.
Oh, I see. That's like the Avengers
The-
ceremony.
Yeah, like, I mean,
Yeah.
the way I get emotional, not thinking about eating nuts and lemon water every day.
Yes, right.
I get emotional thinking about the 550 triglyceride test dropping to 115. That's what I get emotional about. Like, the story actually, the
Interesting.
feeling you get from a good narrative, a good story comes from the large stuff. So this is how but yet 95% of the time and effort, if not more, is coming from the consistency.
Right.
And so often people confuse the two. Like, one is the foundation that takes most of the time, but the thing that is the story that you get to keep comes from the intensity, the large thing. So that combo, it shows up everywhere in different ways.
Mm.
So that just,
Yeah,
it's the orange box.
Yeah, that's cool. If you get rid of the orange box for 1 second,
Sure.
just at the B, I'll explain the B on the right side, just so you can see what it says. So this is the wheel of how we think. I think we've shared this many times, but if you're new, this is how you think. 10% of you is in the present, like right here, right now. 50%, how you think, is from the past. So something happens in the present, it triggers something from the past, which then creates a prediction into the future. So this is just like all the neuroscience has always said, this is literally how it works, where in the present, trigger something in the past, you make a prediction to the future. The challenge with this is just happens so fast, you're not even aware of it. You just make a comment, but you've actually gone through this whole loop, which is why if you don't really know what's in there, right, what you're ruminating on, maybe in the past, regrets, or some of that stuff that you've gone through, you won't really understand why you're thinking the way that you are, which is why we call it a prediction error. Your future, the future is prediction, that's your thinking. Like you're making a prediction, which is why you then go say something or do something, it just happens so fast. So the goal is to slow this down over time so you can actually be aware, like I said, gratitude with a but. It's like slowing it down and be like, what am I doing right now? So it's on this side, we're starting B1. This is the micro rep. The micro rep here is around gratitude. So if you take A1, which is in the morning, you're putting something that, makes you scared, makes you feel fear, and you're learning to build that tolerance window to it right in the morning. The next thing you're gonna do is on your way to work, you're gonna think about, well, if you work from home, but just as you get ready for work, or if you commute, like on your commute, you're starting to think
To your
about
desk in the
Yes.
other room or the
commuting
kitchen.
to your desk
right?
in the other room.
Right.
You're starting to think about the things you're grateful for. These are small things, right? It could be big things, but even small things from the day prior, the prior work day. So if it's a Monday, think about what happened on Friday. It's to actually just start to build a practice and a habit of what are you grateful for, the progress that you made the day before, and the goal is to come in the day feeling some momentum. It's like, I feel a little momentum because we worked on XYZ last night and that made me feel good. I'm glad we started working on that. Today, I'm going to come in and I'm going to continue furthering that thinking. Or, that was a really tough conversation. I'm glad we had it last night as opposed to this morning. I'm grateful that we can, hopefully recover from that today, like whatever it might be, but I'm just grateful for, but without a but.
Without a but. Don't touch
Without
the
a
butt.
Don't touch the
Can-
butt.
Can I emphasize how nuanced this is different than your typical gratitude exercises?
Yes, it's not something like I'm grateful for the fact that I have air in my lungs, my family is healthy, I've been, whatever.
Most
those
gratitude
big-
exercises tend to usually be end of day exercises. And this is changing it to morning to help start your morning.
Mm.
But also, it's not a general, like the thing with gratitude exercises can just be too general.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I can breathe, I'm grateful, I'm healthy. It's very broad versus this is getting very specific to the last workday. And so you're searching for things on the last workday. And the reason why this nuance matters is, and this will go into kind of the building of faith that I get to, visualizing momentum is one of the hardest and most important things to do. But to generate momentum, you have to build on something that worked from the day before or from the days before. But if you're spending, and most people do, right? Like, okay, I'm glad that happened yesterday, but, right? Or I wish that was better, but like, you're actually doing the exact opposite. We're going into work almost wrecking any ability to build
So
momentum.
actually, this would be the opposite of self-belief, it'd be self-doubt.
Right.
You're gonna come in every day feeling self-doubt. You're setting yourself up to be doubting yourself from the second you walk in and start your day.
And when you
Right.
think about facing uncertain stuff, what happens when we are actually building self-doubt? We were saying on the left side, you have all this fear that's unprocessed, so you're bracing, right?
Yes.
That it's a self-fulfilling cycle for most people when you're bracing for something to go wrong, right? Like you end up actually mistakenly taking things that are no big deal and doing the, I knew it, it's happening again. And so the bracing can be very lethal.
Right, so it's
Right?
bracing versus doubt on the right side?
And then you're actually almost going into the beginning of work, generating self-doubt.
Yeah.
So when you have to go into making decisions, figuring out what to do, what do you do when you have self-doubt that you're bracing for something going wrong? I mean, you make all the wrong choices. And when I say all the wrong choices, maybe not always, but I think you can appreciate that combination of ingredients does not make for someone who's going to navigate difficulty well.
Mm-hmm.
You tend to now second guess everything. Since you made mistakes yesterday, why wouldn't you think today I must be making the same mistakes?
Right.
You tend to also go into shit. I don't have a good functioning brain. What would someone else do?
Yeah.
So now you shift from your system 1 to system 2. What's the advice? What's the rule set? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? Before you know it, like you're like doing all the wrong stuff without even knowing it. Now accumulate that for 5 years, 10 years, and it's like, wow, that's the thing we gotta fix,
Yeah,
right?
good.
So, yeah, gratitude,
Yeah, very
don't
different.
touch the butt.
Don't touch the butt, and you're doing it in the morning for the day prior. That's, and
Yes.
it's not these big global things you're grateful.
Work day prior.
Yes, you can be grateful for all that stuff, but this is not gonna train what we're trying to get to is momentum, right? Like actually being able to visualize and build momentum. That's actually P3, right?
And gratitude is very close to acceptance, right? It's the precursor to acceptance. Even a really bad thing yesterday, you should be grateful it happened yesterday, not today, because now you can fix it and build on it today. And that level of acceptance is a rep skill,
Yes.
right? It does not come overnight.
Sorry, I'm like sitting here like, yes, and that's one that you do so well. That is not, yeah, it's like the standard edition
Mhm.
package doesn't come with that, right?
Mhm.
Like you don't, it's like, I always, when I think about some of these things, that comes over, it doesn't come overnight. These are built-in muscles.
I
It
love
always-
that language, by the way. Jim Larry used to use it all the time, the standard edition, right? Like that standard edition, like brain
Yeah.
and what you tend to do intuitively,
Yeah,
is not usually fit for this kind of world.
yeah.
And so as a result of it, like you
have
do
to
a lot of the
train it.
wrong stuff.
Yeah,
You have to train it,
yeah,
right? Standard edition mindset fucks you up, right?
Yeah.
As I said before,
Yeah.
like, you know,
it'll F
your
you up,
mind
your
will F
mind.
you up,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Okay, so that's B1. That's just the micro, right? So we have two micros.
I love the sigh.
So I'm
It's like
sighing.
difficult stuff, huh? It's
Sorry,
hard.
in my family, my dad sighs a lot, and apparently I do a lot too, but my mom used to make fun of my dad, and now in the office, Charlie makes fun of me doing it. You know, when you realize you inherit, maybe the sighing will reduce
Oh.
as I train. I love it, like, wow, that would be amazing. Okay, so B2, this is a fun one, but this is actually really hard to do.
Hard.
Come in, this is hard, to come in the morning with playfulness. As in, be the mood booster and not wait for somebody else to boost your mood, because you can't do great work in a bad mood. You can come in and crank, if you're a data, well, if you just do data entry, your job has probably already been taken by now. But if you do work that doesn't require a brain, it doesn't matter what kind of mood you're in. But if you're doing work, which most, if not all of you are, else you wouldn't have jobs, or sorry, if you don't have a job, you need to learn this, is to actually be in a good mood. And what does that mean? If you come in complaining and bracing, so this is where the left side training matters a lot for the bracing, but complaining, I have to make a very conscious decision when I walk in here to not complain about the things that have happened in the last hour since I woke up. And I'm like becoming more mindful of that. Just stop. It's literally just like dial it down, like not even dial it down, just stop doing it. And just being mindful of that's priming me for a bad day. Like, and it's infectious, you know, you can rub off on your teammates, like you're not fun to be around. So it's like finding a way to dial down the complaining. It's not saying you can't ever have like, you know, but it's just being mindful. If you do that too much, you're the mood, you're the Debbie Downer, you're gonna hurt everybody's mood, including your own ability. So look, playfulness is the language we're using. Typically, the idea of like changing the mood when it doesn't feel right. Physical is what I will glom onto. I think a lot of people do. It's like, I'll go take a walk, I'll go out in the sun, maybe I'll do some gardening, I'll exercise. And those things can change the mood. It can be a distraction from the bad mood. But even when you're in it, you're not actually changing the root. You're not fixing the root. You'll come back to the same feeling when you go back to your desk or go back to the difficult work you're trying to work on. It barely touches it. It might for a little while temporarily change the mood. It might help you get into a better place when you come back. But if you're not working on the actual root, then this is what all this training is, to work on the root. It's not sustainable, right? You'll come back to the
Can I
same
add like the
feeling.
physical, sun, exercise, this? Think of it as riding a bike with then training wheels, right?
Mhm.
We need training wheels sometimes to start to learn to ride the bike, but you're not gonna ever learn to ride the bike if you don't take the training wheels off. And
Right,
so we get so dependent on the training wheels, we
Yeah.
think we're riding a bike. No, you're not.
yeah,
Like you have to learn to take the training wheels off, which is why it's not a physical crutch. It is actually working on the mental stuff, and playfulness is and once again, authentic playfulness is vastly different than fake playfulness. I'm sure we've seen a lot of people, hey guys, how, like, it's like, ugh, like this notion of bringing authentic enthusiasm, energy And you'll notice B2 is like A2. It's the minute you're interfacing and interacting with other people.
Mhm.
The notion of why everything is so uncertain, it has to do with other human beings.
Yeah.
So it's people that make the whole world more uncertain. And so the very interaction on A2, the first interaction with another human being, 0, instead of like kind of avoiding all the difficult prickly topics, too early, this and that, no, you're learning to actually go into it.
Yeah.
Difficult conflict discussion sooner as opposed to later.
Mhm.
On the right side, playfulness is the minute you are interacting with someone, you're generating enthusiasm. That
Yeah.
playful energy versus when you meet people, like the first time is what's wrong? Like, I know there's a lot of people in our lives you met, and the first time you meet them in the morning somewhere, you're like,
Yeah.
what's wrong?
Yeah.
Like, and you almost can feel that aura and energy. Everything is just wrong. Complaining, issues. And it's not to say the issues will go away, but it's learning, once again, the mindset of bringing in playful energy.
I think the challenge with this is gonna be that fake enthusiasm, like that fakeness can actually be more annoying, but it's like how you have to start,
But it's
right?
not even in the nuts. I mean, I was
Yeah.
gagging every
Yes,
day,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I literally I am not hungry. My body is rejecting it, not hungry.
Yeah,
At some point, you actually get to a place, you wake up and you're a little bit hungry,
yeah.
right? It takes time for that change to occur.
Okay, and so this is B2, and then B3, this is the big one, like, just like Charlie said on the left side, the large bravery rep around trauma, difficult topics. Ultimately, if you don't get to this, you're gonna wonder why you're doing all this stuff, right? Like why you have to work on B1, B2, A1. So it's working on this idea of like love, touching Eden, kind of your vision of what you're trying to do in your life. It's trusting people. It's kind of like all the good stuff, like faith, belief. We've called it wanting before, like I was saying Big Papa saying fake it till you make it, faith it till you make it. Okay, maybe it's faith it till you make it. But yeah.
But can I also emphasize, going straight to B3, which is what most of the literature and mindset does, literally is building on like
Fake
just
foundation,
fragile foundation,
Yeah.
right? The
You feel like you're lying
foundation,
to yourself.
the
like-
95% consistency comes from A1, A2, B1, B2, every fucking day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And you do that to the point where it's so natural and normalized, then you build on it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It falls
Yeah,
apart.
like you
Actually,
need these other pieces to start to believe and see that and visualize yourself becoming someone different, growing, strength, actually seeing momentum in yourself, not the actual outcome, but actually believing that you're gonna be a different person, that things are gonna get better or whatever that is, or you're gonna figure out that thing that you're working on that you want so badly. Unless you're doing these other things, I don't think you'll fully see it, or you'll be lying to yourself, right? And then it's not gonna help you, right? Because you kind of know
Can I-
the bullshit meter.
can I
but,
show
um,
you this really quick?
Yeah, but can I just say one more quick piece under B3? This is where it goes wrong, the error, type 1 people make, or maybe at least I make it. This might resonate with you guys or not, but I'll visualize some of those things, but I will visualize the future hardships before getting to that. So I'll think, I can picture Eden, I can picture when we get here, we're gonna do this, and someday this is gonna happen, and I can visualize those moments, but I quickly will go into, and here's all the things that have to happen, and all the difficulty that has to happen before we get there. That's not doing the thing. That's actually not helping me visualize. That's the butt. That's the butt.
Right.
That's the butt.
That's not faith, that's not belief, that's not wanting,
Yes.
right? In fact, it will do the opposite. It'll
Yes.
make you
Makes
feel
me more
like, is it
depressed.
worth it?
Yeah.
We'll never
It's-
get over the hurdles.
It's like,
so-
it's impossible, why bother, right? And then you just go back to being your same, miserable self. Okay, what did you want to share?
No, so I can do it after, I was gonna share this, but.
You can do it. Go ahead.
No?
Go, you can fast forward and then I'll
Sure.
come back, and then I'll
Oh,
come
yeah,
back.
so here,
Yeah.
I wanna show you something that I think will help ground sort of the skill. And I think this simple framework is really helpful, just a low, mid, high end skill. Like this entire thing, type 1 error, right? How to dial down fear and how to dial up faith. You have to realize that when your capability as your skill is low, which is what most people will start with, right? Our standard edition default, what we have is low. You have to learn to drop the problem, meaning the very thing that's hijacking your brain, that problem, the more you try to solve it, you'll see you get worse. And how many times you will say, no, but I have to.
Yeah.
I have to solve, I have to do it. And so this is out there quite a bit in some of the the top research on brains and brain science, neuroscience, is that literally the thing that is hijacking your brain, if you don't drop it, you're gonna make it worse, right? So when your skill is low, which is where you start, recognize I have to drop the problem and I have to train my capability up. And if you don't recognize that, right? And sometimes I know you have like, well, I have no choice. I have to go to this meeting. Well, when you realize your skill is low, that you're likely more than anything to fuck up the problem, right? Fuck up the thing you're trying to fix. You'll just do it with a different level of emphasis.
Right,
You know?
less certainty,
Right?
less certainty.
It's almost like if you know, like, I don't know, like you'll just be more cautious, right? As opposed to the danger is we narrate, no, I have to do it, this and that, and then you do the opposite. You do it with force, right? And you'll see everything goes wrong from there. So
Yeah,
when that fear is showing up, realize you have to learn to dial down or drop the problem
yeah.
and focus on increasing capability before you can revisit. You'll see as your capability goes up, you start to pick up the problem. Even with fear present, you pick up the problem. When your skill gets high, and this is the best place to get to, obviously, you actually search for more difficult problems. It's like no different than doing a workout. You're like, God, how do I make this harder?
Yeah.
Not because I'm like I want pain. No, because I want to get even stronger.
Yeah.
And you realize that very difficult problem that generates fear is the very thing that gets me stronger. So in this case, type 1, it's saying I want something even scarier. This doesn't generate fear for me. I'm looking for things that are even scarier.
Really see how this is not standard edition.
Yes.
This is like.
But just
this is like-
recognizing the low, mid, high. And so don't be a fool and think, oh, I'm just gonna go straight to high because, you know,
That's
I
like-
don't think
yeah.
type 1s tend to do it.
That's
But
like
if you find yourself doing that, you're probably type 2, right? So just
another good litmus test.
little litmus test,
Yeah.
everyone.
It's like, I'm gonna squat 100 pounds for the first time I've ever squatted is the kind of stupid, right? You're gonna get hurt.
Yes, okay, so,
Okay, so I threw this together, you guys, just, I don't know if it helps, it's just in terms of like a way to think about the protocol for this side, where you have daily things that are scheduled, you have unplanned things, right? Because unplanned is the, you know, this is all the consistency, these two pieces. This is all the unplanned stuff that is unexpected, but every time you have an interaction, for instance, with somebody, you're gonna be authentic, right? Lean into the, when you feel nervous, the 0, 0. And then there's the things that are when you're feeling brave, and ultimately, like Charlie said, if you don't get to those things at the bottom, ultimately you'll stop the training, right? You'll wonder why the heck you're eating nuts and drinking lemon water every day if you don't get to these bigger things. So yeah, so this is just another way to look at it, right? Like I just kind of label the things like dialing down fear and dialing up faith every morning, right? The micro
should I change
reps.
the arrows to green?
I know I tried to. I don't know why. It's okay. Can you not do it right now?
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
I tried to. For some reason, I couldn't figure, I don't know why they weren't
The arrows
changing.
are all black.
No, they're blue.
Is it
I
blue?
made them blue, then I couldn't get them green for some reason last night. So
Color.
stupid. Then I was
They
like, you
look
know what?
black to me.
Then I was like, why am I worried about this right now? We'll fix it. Darkness. No, I was trying to do green. See? I tried to make it green. It didn't, I don't know what happened. Let me get the setting that I had where I put on the SharePoint when I didn't download it to a desktop. It doesn't even matter. It's good. It's
great.
It's gonna be good enough.
It's great.
Okay, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. All right, the next page. This is the last slide I had. It's a little cheesy, but I was like, let me try, right? Because this is not how, these words don't spew out of me very easily, right? So like, this is the goal. I have this woman there, you know, that ultimately we're trying to get to for type 1 is that your trauma or whatever word, the difficult things that own you and kind of take up a lot of your mind share don't, you know, own you anymore. They don't hijack you. You believe that like good will triumph. You have faith that there's good people out there. And because of that belief, you actually contribute more in whatever you're doing. Even if it's like 1% more, 2% more every day, that stuff accumulates in a positive way. Just talk about all the negative contributions every day that accumulate. Like these are the positive contributions every day. When you believe and you trust people, it's like the idea of like falling in love. Yes, you could get hurt, but like you're leaning into it. You're trying because as you do love, you'll add more and you'll make that love even better. Like it's like all the good things that we need to continue to contribute, but you have to believe and you have to trust in the good things, trust in the process. And then if you keep doing that over time, this is where you'll find peace. Like this is ultimately what we want to get to for the people who are in the fear-based mode of not living, but just prediction error.
So
Now Charlie's turn.
I have 2 slides I want to go into, and they're really messy, so I apologize because I did not take the time to clean it up. But so I wanted to pull this up from one of our notes and discussions. mainly just to give a little airtime for the type 2 side frustration. Our early thesis, it's coming from the other side, meaning like, and so this was a good litmus test. A lot of type 1, the fear-based error makers that happen mostly at work, this feeling of, I'd rather work on the business, I'd rather work on the work, is the litmus test for, you're probably type 1. In type 2 and frustration, the thing they avoid is actually the work that they have in front of them. They would rather work on their development or work on others or the work of others. And so when you find yourself in this litmus test, it's like saying, like it gives you an indication. And we believe the thesis is it's coming from opposite directions. That type 2 is going to have to focus, especially in getting into their work, working on the hardest thing, using easy as an oscillation before trying to come back to the hard work. And so it's completely different than the other side. The fear-based, you literally, the very work is what's making you trigger and hijacked by fear.
And we keep
So you have to keep working on your capability even more than touching the work. And so just kind of recognizing the opposite directions it comes from. But I'm gonna pull up this really busy slide because it's on our wall, but kind of focusing on this upper right. I think ultimately we said the building blocks of self-belief, which is related to faith, which is related to, this notion of joy, love, even trust. When you trust other human beings, trust that the process, it will work out, like true, not lip service stuff. And I say lip service because the true test is when bad stuff happens, watch how you react emotionally. When bad stuff happens, right, suddenly the person is like, everything's gonna be great, does not literally act so great. They're unable to recover, they're almost like gut punched, and the recovery isn't there, it's not genuine. And so you want that faith, that self-belief, so genuine. It's like, and I always use the example we learned from preschoolers where, the kid who wants to do the monkey bar so badly, right, this is the wanting, that despite their hands like literally getting cut and bleeding, they will not give up going across the monkey bar. That level of drive, that level of faith, how do you generate it? And that is a skill. It is not a standard edition skill. We find it by accident in certain areas. And then it's kind of like, I have no idea how I got so driven or good at that. Everything else is kind of like, I'm just not good at it. And that is bullshit. You can literally learn the skills to get good at anything. And that notion of wanting belief, how does it come? And so, I'm sorry, I kind of animated in the wrong order.
The skills of wanting and belief.
So actually, you know what? If you can just stay with me and just ignore this bottom slide, just don't even look at it because it's so busy. But at the very top, there was this kind of military warrior podcast talking about, how to overcome fear. And we've heard this a lot, visualization. And I don't know if you've heard this notion. When you practice visualization, which is looking into the future, seeing success, you cannot visualize the result, the outcome. And the reason is you can't control all the variables, including what others do. So where we get most frustrated or where it doesn't work out is the act of visualizing a result, a success. It doesn't work because it's out of your control. Like how others will behave and other things will happen is out of your control. So visualizing the outcome is what everything says don't do, but what you can do is visualize how you are, right? How we present ourselves, calm, cool, collected, resilient, tough, the whole 9 yards. And so that's the visualization. But in practice, what does that mean? And so this picture I took is literally on my wall and it's been for years. And so as we're looking at this, I was telling Meghan, wait, the answer sits right here. Let me explain to you. Lagging metrics versus leading metrics. Lagging metrics are things you can count and see. When you win numbers, profit, revenue, the whole 9 yards, lagging. Leading is like the indications, the signals of success. Separately, think of the right side as outcome or output. Think of the left side as process and input. Learning to visualize input, learning to visualize process, not outcome, not output. And so on the very right side, think of the lagging, the outcome. The very right, number 4 is results. The precursor to 4 is others jump in. When things work, others jump in, they help. And so when you think and know that visualization, faith, belief, wanting, all of that is not on the right side. So when you find yourself trying to visualize how everyone else will do all the right things perfectly, that's when you know you're doing the wrong thing. So visualization has a place you have to stop, and kind of like the whole, imagine if I try to visualize the triglyceride being below the 120 number, and which is kind of the number of like normal, like being below 120 and everyone's celebrating around me and all that stuff, like that thing actually does the opposite. And
Makes you-
remember, we worked with
Yeah.
like this woman who like did the most terrifying stuff in the world and conquered all these things. She was saying the very act of these affirmations actually does the exact opposite of what you're saying. It's like when you go on a marathon and towards the end of the race, or when you're like dying and people are like, you're gonna make it, you're gonna make
They're
it.
like, you can do it, you can do it. And that makes people think, wait, can I not do it?
Right.
Right?
And
You can do it.
so what's shown up a
Yeah.
lot is affirmations end up being not only bullshit,
Right.
they actually do the reverse. They make you doubt and they make you question.
So meaning if
the
somebody said
outcome
to you,
won't be
Charlie,
there.
you can do it with the triglycerides, you can
You're
do
gonna
it.
win, you're gonna be fine. It makes you say
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Like it will make you question the other side. The very act of their vocal public positivity will make your mind balance it by thinking about the other side.
Yeah.
So the very focus on outcome, the lagging does the exact opposite. And so this is where it's gone wrong. So look on the left side. The leading signal, it starts with narrative, which is basically your own mindset. What stories am I telling myself? And put over here, 5% versus a 95% routine is how you build it. And then it goes to momentum. And momentum is interesting because it's a trend. It's a moving object. Can you see the different approaches to building momentum? I can see me get this and then this. Or maybe here's a different approach. And we talk a lot about visceral drafting what you want to get done. You want to be able to visualize the starting point, which is your own narrative mindset, and then the building blocks, as in the approaches of how it could work. And not with others involved, not with the actual end result, but like how you visualize, okay, this happens, that's one approach. The visceral drafting exercise is coming up with different approaches. And I put over here in the momentum, right? Fear is always present because until you actually gain momentum, it might not work, right? That's why it's so hard. It's so hard to put down on paper, explain to someone. So this is one way we could win, right? And win being not like results show up, but like momentum. Momentum is the win. Once you gain momentum, doesn't matter what it is, it will naturally fuel you. And when the momentum is great enough, others naturally jump in. But until there's enough momentum, you can yell, scare them, whatever, they will not jump in, not with their all. And so the key is to generate that momentum. And that momentum is the precursor to tangible results. Like it's the single best leading indication of good things will come. And you know when people say, let the results take care of itself? Just believe in the process, invest in the process. What does that even mean? It's actually saying, number one, number two, right? You work on your mindset and then you generate momentum by visualizing, being able to see, okay, I want this, but the flexibility of that's one approach. You might have a few others. When you have 10, it's too much. But when you have one, it's too little. And what's interesting, some of the other language I had here is this, that post-it note, I said, what is the work? The work for all of us is to win, to make success. But when success isn't there, which is gonna be for all of us, at some point you have natural momentum. Like when COVID hit, grocery stores had natural momentum. Delivery had natural momentum. But a lot of times that's not what happens. We're not fortunate enough where the world gives us this natural momentum from the outside. So most times you aren't making success. So then the thing you have to do next is debug what's happening. Why am I not succeeding? Why am I not making the difference in success? And the debugging is not to go and visualize, believe, and keep doing these crappy affirmations on the lagging side. You have to be able to learn the skills to visualize the leading side. And so what Meghan walked you through, type 1, is literally learning how to build. Fear no longer hijacks you at the level where you can't act, you can't think straight. And then get to a place where you believe. you actually want to do something. You want it so much that the struggle, you just know, is part of it. Not like, well, I thought it was supposed to be easier.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work again. And in the very upper left, I put, this is kind of really on the sheet. So, victim to your narrative. We are victims to our own narrative. And remember, you can rep and control your narrative. And it always starts with recognizing what's happening.
Yeah,
What I love about the details of mapping out fear
yeah,
and mapping out, sort of building faith.
Right.
When you start to see, wait, I think about yesterday, but everything is with a but, which means I'm saying there's wrong decisions made that I wish to go back and redo that, even though you can't. See, there's a difference between having the level of arrogance and blind faith where you're like, everything is done right. I was phenomenal every day. It's not about being phenomenal every day. It's
Yeah.
about accepting what happened and you're building on that. Even if it's really bad, you're building on that. If you're cratering into a valley, well, maybe that was gonna happen anyways. And so, thank God I hit bottom faster so I can start building up. And knowing the details I can look at without like, well, I don't like to think about all the bad things because it depresses me. You'll see you can't use your brain, your intuition.
yeah, I think that's all we had, and actually, I think, but, I feel that this part is like the hardest for me. It's like this idea of, visualizing the different ways to build momentum and right? And not look at the outcome, not think about the thing that you want. The example we were talking about last night was around strength training. We started doing more strength training. It's not like I visualized like muscles and all these things, but it's like visualizing the process of getting stronger, right? And then you just start looking for ways to
And the
add
reason why
more momentum
the
to that. That
visualizing
makes
doesn't
sense to
work
me.
is usually, remember all the work we did even with Josh Waiskin and all the stuff, it all led to this part where anything, especially that we changed, that you
Yeah.
have been, the whole standard edition defaulted to,
Yeah,
you're gonna do worse before you
do
get better.
right?
Which means if you're visualizing success, you're gonna give
Right.
up because you're gonna do worse first. Like people will say, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
You were so much more pleasant before. I don't know what you're doing, but now you're like irritating, right? Whether it's with your enthusiasm, first time I see you, or whether it's with your like,
Conflict.
wait, I'm like barely had my coffee and you already have an issue with me?
Yeah.
Like, there's a part where it will go worse first before it gets better. Because when you're first doing these reps and protocols.
It's so unnatural.
It's so unnatural.
It's so
and-
unnatural.
And your unnatural aura and energy,
Yes.
right, will like just make it not work. So by visualizing not the process, but the outcome, the lagging result, you just will stop. Versus the process is, that's what it
That
goes
does
through.
explain your annoyance with me over the last few weeks, although like the annoyed energy, I keep thinking, are we not type 2 right now, annoyed energy? Why don't you work on yourself? It's like, it's so hard,
Between the
because I'm
two
like,
of us, it's
you
like a-
know, you should be working on your own,
Yeah.
why don't you get to work on the business, like,
Yes.
stop looking at me, like, work
And
on yourself.
It's like just like gaslighting with capital letters against each other back and forth, because we are like literally polar
Polar
opposites.
opposite, I'm
So
like,
it's like can
I
be a
sense some
complete,
frustrated energy, maybe you should.
and I was like, maybe you're scared.
It's like, why don't you work on yourself, or why don't you work on the business?
All right, you can unmute, and we did not get a chance to read the chat. Some people might have, but anyone, like, please,
Yeah, I think Terry had to go.
ask away. What parts, resonate the most? What
They like your
parts
nuts.
most insightful? What
Section.
parts, kind of most challenging? What made your brain be like, no shit, or wow?
You know, if you're type 1 and you're nervous to speak up, this would be your opportunity.
Hey guys, how are you?
Is that Big Papa?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Hi.
Riding through Narragansett, a little choppy reception, but I did want to ask you guys a little question. Because Charlie, you touched on micro habits. My question is so when we broke down the A and the B, and we started with small, medium, and large, the micro habits that what kind of micro habits did you have to break down? Right? We talked about creating micro habits, but are they breaking, what are we, where's that time coming from? Or what are we replacing to make those positive micro habits? What are some maybe red alarms that come up that we have to be like dialing down to make space to dial up? If that makes sense, which is kind of my
Yeah.
question.
Oh, go ahead. I was saying on the section on the B side, which is the dialing up faith, the few examples in there, starting with B1, right? The gratitude would be recognizing that when you're trying to, you're reflecting, right? Gratitude is a reflection that you're adding in a but, right? Like you're adding in all these little exceptions to the things that you're grateful for. It's like just looking for those little nuances when you're reflecting to be grateful for the whole thing. It's like the full benefit of the day or the experience, not a piece of it and then kind of shitting on the other half of it was one example. I think also it's like, for example, on B2, the playfulness, like to actually look for it when you start the day complaining, right? When you start the day with a problem, start the day with, something really negative. I think that was the.
But can I dial it to the A1, B1?
Mhm.
So what's interesting on A1 is this. I think about something that scares you, which literally sometimes can just be your bank balance, right? Like to be able to like actually look at that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Within 30 minutes of waking up every morning.
Yeah.
And you'll see over time, the hijack nature of something that scares you is far worse when it's hidden.
Yeah.
When it's in the light, it is painful, you may gag, but getting used to that micro like habit that helps dial down fear.
It's like the monster
Whatever it
that you
might
can't
have.
see is worse than the monster you
Yes.
can see. So it's just.
And
building
then
it in.
what you're doing is you're injecting something that most of us typically do not intentionally or consciously do, which is to think about like, what am I grateful for from yesterday's workday? And you have to get specific. And I think in the beginning, you might just be like, we made it through. Like, it'll be just like kind of generic stuff. But then the way gratitude generally as an exercise works is as you do this repeatedly, you end up actually experiencing the day differently,
Yeah.
right? You'll realize, this will probably go on my list tomorrow morning, right? And so even when tough stuff happens, you're like, that's not bad. I can build on this. That notion of momentum and building on it. But why this matters is, do you know how many times we end the day feeling good, but you wake up feeling like crap? So you take all day to get back,
Yeah.
like past your crappiness, right? And by the time you're all okay, well, the day ended, right? So why it's so important to start, and what we have found consistently is the start disproportionately matters more than any other part in time. And then the second most important part is the end, because the end will feed into the start. But even if you try to feed correctly into the start, nighttime sleep will just wreck you. So if you don't start the day correctly, the entire day is now fighting an uphill battle to get to a good starting point. And then as time runs away, panic sets in, like you just don't do well, which is why there's an intentional hard rep of the micro bravery and the micro gratitude, like right before you even start work.
It did make me think about hard mode. It's true. It's actually injecting a hard mode first thing in the morning.
Mhm.
So you're not thinking it's gonna be great, right? And then you come in
Well,
and
both
something
are hard,
hijacks
right?
you. And then the gratitude also.
Yes, and I do believe the sequence matters. You don't start by, because the idea of the A1, the micro bravery, is to free your intuitive mind. Like, because as long as it's hijacked and has all this police tape of can't go here, don't look at this, the other side's not even working. So and oftentimes I think some people might have to just do A1, just do A1 before they feel like, okay, I'm not like throwing up anymore. I'm not like feeling that. So you start to add in B1.
Yeah.
Right? And then as you do that, you start to notch it up. Now I'm doing A1, B1 every day. But then as soon as I come in and interact with any human being, I'm doing A2, right? And then imagine A2, but the counterbalancing element is B2, right?
Yeah.
This enthusiastic, genuine energy. And so you do enough of this, before you know it, you start to get a little greedy of like bigger goals.
Yes, right.
You that stuff that I really struggle with, I don't like to think about, can't talk about without getting upset or angry or something, I'm like comfortable navigating through it, right? So you get comfortable navigating through that. And then there's a part of like, you have goals, as in, I want to do something. Do you know what it's like coming in every day, like wanting to accomplish something? Like, and you're that like on a
Fired
mission,
up, yeah.
right? And that adds up over time. Just like I'm bracing all day long, right? I have self-doubt from yesterday or the days before. I'm gonna start by kind of voicing out my complaining. Like, and it's like, how long is it taking you? At 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock before you're like, okay? And now you try to do work and the day's already over?
No, it's
And
try
everyone's like,
again tomorrow.
right, but we'll try again tomorrow, right? And same thing happens over and over again. And these add up and make it worse and worse.
You do A2, B2 with the same person, meaning 0, 0, and then flip to playful energy.
So Terry's comment about
Yeah, you can't plan
you
it.
cannot plan A2 and B2. The plan is actually when you're no longer using S1, you're using S2, your system 2. I'm gonna come in with a pre-planned joke, right?
But I know what you mean though, because it feels very opposite, right? Which is one is like full on like 0, 0, which is if there's a fight, say Charlie and I have, if I come in, like I have, like my mom used to loves the phrase, you have a hair across your ass. Like you come in, I have a hair across my ass, I got something, a piece of mind I want to share with you. But then I'm like, ooh, let's go, you know, something playful, like enthusiastic, looking forward to getting something done, or, you know, that can feel like tension. But I think those two, if I feel it, I should say it, right? Which is, I thought about this overnight, I came in, I gotta get this off my chest. But then also be able to, if I have to, like find a way to get the mood back to a place where I want to get it to the work, like, but I might not have that with him. So then I don't need to come in and force fight, you know? Because then you're planning
but
to
and I
like,
just think
planning the
about-
conflict, it's like, that's again, like, that's not, planning is not the thing. Because
Right.
we're trying to navigate when uncertainty hits and fear hits and nerves hit, to not freeze and then like find a way to excuse yourself out and eject, right? Like, that's what we're trying to figure out.
On
Like,
the A2, I think once you hopefully have now seen this,
yeah,
you may recognize, and this is the whole part, like remember in the thing I put like, you know, before you can control what you're doing, you're gonna start to get
notice.
aware, you're gonna start to recognize. Like, just like you recognize how many times gratitude with a butt, right? How
Yeah.
many times you just try to touch butt, right?
Yeah.
Butt, like, but on the flip
Yeah.
side, you start to recognize how many instances, if I just told you, if I took my filter off, here's what I would say. And how many of those conversations we don't do,
Mhm.
that we avoid.
Yeah.
And you'll start to realize how, and
Yeah,
the key is to fight against that automatic earlier in the day, right?
right.
Like the first interaction with another human being,
Yeah.
and that shows up, you'll start first recognizing. That's what happens. Before you start doing, you start to recognize. Wait, I want to say this, but I'm not gonna, right? And why the thing connects is because your prediction is it'll make it less productive. It'll make it turn bad. It will be, so the avoidance becomes the muscle, but the very thing we don't realize is the more we avoid,
Yeah.
it's like the trauma. The more we're training ourselves to not use the intuitive system 1 part of our brain.
Right.
And, all of Daniel Kahneman's work and research was that the way we operate as human beings, 95% of us is supposed to use the intuitive brain, 95% of the time. Which means the logical side is only 5%.
That's crazy,
But
right?
imagine how we can train ourselves to use 50% logical brain, or some number that's definitely way bigger than 5%.
The thing you said on conflict, just to go back real quick, it's a nuance. I think it's very true though. Why it connects to dialing up faith is if you won't go into the conflict if you don't think having that conversation could lead the relationship to a better place. Which means you have to believe it will be better. You have to trust in your intention going into it, that you're not there just to be an asshole, or you're not there to like rip somebody. You're actually there trying to figure out how to make it even better. And I'm going into this because it's difficult for me, it's difficult for you, but I feel like it'll make the partnership or relationship or something better.
I think about this example with this guy, Brad Feld, this whole idea that why you would put in the energy and be giving is because you see it work out.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Right.
even though you can't say how, when, in what form, like that notion of being able to see like something working out into the future. What conflict and difficult conversations are is exactly that.
Yeah.
I think we'll have a better relationship because of that. Versus in the short term, it always feels better to avoid it,
Mhm.
but it adds up.
Yeah.
Because the next thing to avoid then is easier. And then it's easier. And as it adds up, at some point, it's like, are we having a real conversation? And that's where you're wondering, what the hell went wrong in our relationship?
My
Right?
doc used to always say you get good at being bad.
Yeah.
You just get better and better at being bad, as in doing the wrong thing, because it gets easier. Keep doing the
And
same thing that you got good at.
And the problem is this, the short-term cost is, almost looks like you get a higher return
Mhm.
by picking the standard edition version of avoid it. But the long-term takes more work.
Yeah,
And you'll see the benefits don't show up till later, and
Right.
it's painful in the beginning, which is why we tend to pick.
the short term.
We bet on the short term, but you'll see at some point, all I have is kind of like not, like difficult stuff in the world. How do I process that? How do I get someone to solve it with me? As opposed to, I gotta solve all those myself, because like, I lose my relationships.
Mhm.
And that's where the whole, ultimately,
Right.
you'll see there's no love, there's no trust, there's very little faith, belief, and then wanting disappears. And so you become kind of like emptier than you should be.
Right.
And it's counterintuitive that to do the opposite, it actually is very difficult. It's painful,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Nuts
It
and lemon
is
water,
interesting, the
right?
A1 and B1 and A1, B1, A2, B2, A2, whatever, sorry, the language. They're like opposing, right? As we're saying, dialing down fear while dialing up faith. So you're building in a habit every day and every week that are supportive of each other, right? Because you're dialing something down. And you're dialing
The discussion we had last night too was this, you know, because we're organic human beings,
Oh,
take all of this with 50% direction. Meaning, like, situationally, your life could be in a place where the trauma right now is the single biggest thing. So you're starting with A3,
yeah.
right? Not by choice, this just is what it is. Like, so recognizing, hey, look, if you could start brand new baby and just building up, like, this is the way I would build it.
Yeah.
But that's not what life is. This is taking an approach that has 50% sort of like,
Yeah, you have to adjust based on your situation, right? There, yeah,
It's also
Yeah.
kind of like tools, so then
It's
you're going to
raw.
situationally.
right.
if you don't adjust it accordingly, it's literally like, it's like kind of cooking. You're like, I have to have every ingredient, but that's not what's available,
Yeah.
right? So you have to adjust and you have to, and this is the part where the key is to do the rep, the difficult part. And some of the principles that tend to hold true is any intense thing, whether it's dealing with the most traumatic things in your life or like feeling that level of wanting and belief at such a high level, built on a foundation of
Yeah.
consistent, habits, consistent routine, it's much stronger.
Yeah.
It becomes a skill. It's not a skill when all the examples people usually have is 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20, right? We fool ourselves thinking we're good at this stuff by telling the same story of remember when I did that? I'm like, yeah, but that's like 1 out of 10. And so you'll see that like, or I'll be like, all right, if you're really that good, let me test you. And suddenly it's like, wait, what are you
fall
doing?
apart,
You
yeah.
fall apart. And so strength comes from being able to go into difficulty, which is why, what I was saying was when you get this right, you will be searching for more difficult problems because that's how you get stronger. Like you will actually up level your goals. You will actually try to help people at even bigger levels in faster ways. Like there's a whole change that occurs. Good. All right.
Right,
I
guys.
hope that's
Yeah.
helping you guys.
Maybe we'll have the other side
we
next
will.
week, but I don't know. This is where we're going organic. Depends on, we're learning a lot.
Yeah.
We're
We're
learning a
going
lot.
deeper
This
and
is
deeper
cool.
into nuances, so we're
Yeah, we'll
kind of
see.
sharing the stuff.
You're not
live.
going to flip flop between the
Right.
two.
We're not gonna, we're trying to stick right
Stick to
now.
one side.
Because it's like so different that it makes it so hard.
Yes.
All right, guys.
All right.
Have a good week.